What's up, folks? And it's that time of the week again for our BackMarkers F1 Power Rankings. This is round number 20 of 21, following what was an incredible Brazilian Grand Prix. If you haven't done so already, check out our recap podcast of that. We got a lot of great little gems in there, talking about all the race incidents and such, so go and check that out. We had a lot of fun with it. But this list was probably the hardest list to make out of all the races that we've been doing this for.
Yeah, I mean, there was just so many, not new entries, but so many different, we got to put people in so many different spots for this one. It was a hard call. But yeah, I mean, let's just get to it.
Absolutely. We'll start with number 10, and here's a driver that was kind of lost in the shuffle of all the great performances, but actually did a pretty good job in getting the team some points, and that's Sergio Perez, and he's continuing his...
I was going to say, my first question to you was, when you said that, was, did he make points finish?
Right, yeah.
I had no idea, because like you said, you lost track of him in this race.
Yeah, he got enough in 8th place and did enough just to get the car home in the points scenario. Or sorry, he got there in 9th place, so he got Racing Point an additional 2 points, which was, I think, probably a little bit better than what they expected. They weren't so good here in Brazil. But yeah, he's kept that run of form in the last 5 races of scoring in the top 10. He's completely outclassed his teammate in race pace and in qualifying pace as well. So he was lost in the shuffle of a great Brazilian Grand Prix, but I think he did enough just to stay in our top 10.
Number 9, we have Sebastian Vettel, who has dropped 3 places. And I mean, I don't really need to explain this because it's very obvious why he did drop. He would have had a points finish, probably P4 or P5 in the end, and then just a little bit of aggression got the best of him. Best of 2 drivers, actually, and which made them both fall out of position. And he ends up in P9. I mean, he had a great qualifying, but
that's about it.
Couldn't convert.
Yeah, and again, when you look the last 5, a couple of DNFs, obviously going back to Russia and the United States, podiums in Japan and Mexico, but if you didn't watch our recap, we did lay the blame on Vettel for that incident, and as a Ferrari driver once said, all the time you have to leave it a space.
Yeah. And
he didn't leave it a space for Leclerc, so that's why he's in number 9, still in the top 10. We'll see if he finishes there after Abu Dhabi. So in number 8 then, we have his teammate, Charles Leclerc, and Leclerc started off, when we started doing these rankings, was climbing the list up and up. Now in the last 5 races, he's been climbing down and down.
I mean, this was a steep drop. He dropped from fourth position to 8th position. I mean, it was coming for a while, and I think we were talking about it in the last one, that, if he doesn't have a good podium finish or doesn't make the top 5 or 6, I think it's going to be a big drop for him. But I don't think any of us were expecting him to not finish this race whatsoever. Which is very unfortunate, because I'm sure he would have climbed back up to the top 4 or 5 position on our list. So.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair to him, he did have the engine penalty, so he did a good job cutting through the field. Obviously, not that difficult when you're in a Ferrari.
Yeah,
but the incident with his teammate, and we're counting the last 5 as well too. He's been having a little bit of a struggle. Hasn't had a race win since Italy, obviously. It's been tough for Charles Leclerc. And again, the other drivers that did so well in this race, we had to put them ahead. So that's why he's dropped down into number 8. One of the drivers that did better than Charles Leclerc in this race,
Daniel Rick,
coming in at 7.
Coming in at 7th place.
Daniel Ricciardo.
He has made up 1 spot, so he went from 8th position to 7th. And I mean, despite his one incident in this race, he's been so consistent since the summer break. You take away his one. I guess the one that did get taken away from Renault in general, from Singapore. He's just been a consistent driver since the start of the summer break. Always been in those positions to get points, and this week he just had a great racing right at the really beginning with Lando Norris and some of the other drivers, and carried it all the way to get P6 in the end. P6 in the end.
And imagine what he could have done had he not torpedoed Kevin Magnussen and got the penalty.
Yeah, probably would have been in P5.
Props to Daniel Ricciardo. Maybe even on the podium. Who knows?
Possibly. With how this race went, you never know.
That's how good Ricciardo is. He's like, you know what? I'll pick up the penalty and I'll still finish ahead of Magnussen. So that's why he's 7th. I think that was pretty badass from Daniel Ricciardo. Fan favorite here on the show. So good for Ricciardo. And in sixth position, one of your favorite drivers, actually.
Yeah, I gave him a shout out in the last one because
right.
I think he does not get enough credit, and which is Valtteri Bottas. And I think he's had a really good season. And I was thinking about how we're going to be compiling our overall list, at the end of the season for the best drivers of the season rather than the last 5 races. I was trying to place him in where he would be in my top, in my top 10 list. And I think he would be number 3 or number 4 overall.
Interesting. Yeah.
Because again, he's a driver that, he's very consistent. He gets those podium finishes. He'll get those. He's that teammate that you want on your team because he does all the dirty jobs and he still has a really good drive at the end. And the reason he dropped down this week was because of his engine overheating issue. Obviously falling too close to Charles Leclerc. He also just didn't do enough to get past Charles Leclerc. Charles Leclerc had some great defending in this race before he DNF'd out. So yeah.
Yep. No, agree with you there. And again, drivers ahead of them that did better, that finished the race, that had career performances, we got to put them ahead of them.
For sure.
Yeah. All right, moving into our top 5 then. Here's a driver that should have been on the podium.
Oh, he would have been like top 3 drivers of this week if the incident didn't happen.
Yeah, and of course we're talking about Alex Albon. And
2 positions.
And really through no fault of his own, I thought that he drove probably one of his best races for Red Bull in all of this season as well. We were talking about in our recap the overtake on Sebastian Vettel, which was phenomenal. And I was watching this saying, man, you know what? He's going to move up in my list for the power rankings because he's done such a good job battling the big boys, Ferrari and Mercedes. And he's finally being the good wingman for Verstappen that we haven't seen from Red Bull all season long. I mean, they were running 1-2 at one point and really should have finished 1-2 had it not been for the incident.
I think one of us said Alex Albon was going to get podium in Brazil.
We were so close. So damn close.
I was like thinking about that when that race was going on. I'm like, who said that? I'm like, who was the one that said Brazil that Albon?
I think Tyler said
Was it Tyler?
We're going to have to go back on our records.
Because oh man, he was just like one lap.
Yeah. So then moving on is the man that he replaced at Red Bull, and that's number 4, Pierre Gasly. And Pierre Gasly, who actually exited our list last week because we put Lando back in, but he made his debut not too long ago in our power rankings. But he had a career race at Brazil, and that's why he's 4th position for us. P2 fended off Lewis Hamilton.
Come and watch racing here.
fended off Lewis Hamilton and got his career.
Good job, Pierre.
Damn it, Pierre, I'm trying to talk.
Every time.
Just running that on a loop now. As I was saying, Pierre, his career best finish in Formula One, P2, got on the podium, fended off Lewis Hamilton right at the end by just a couple of tenths of a second, and just overall just drove an exceptional race. And we talked about it in our recap that he's done so well since returning to Toro Rosso. And he showed why he initially got the Red Bull seat. He's very talented. And the emotion that he showed after the race from the team, from Pierre, obviously, on the radio, we'd love to put him this high on our list. So this is one that we were really happy for.
Yeah, and I think we even said in our review where there's not a lot of times where a driver gets a podium finish and you see other teams and other drivers congratulating him for the win. And we saw it right at the end with Max congratulating him, with the entire Red Bull team, obviously, his old engineers congratulating him. Even Lewis Hamilton and some of the other drivers came out to congratulate him. So, it's a big moment to get your first podium and to go through what he has this past year, and to have that at the very end is very satisfying for him, I'm sure.
Yeah, so that's why I put him so high on our list ahead of some of the other drivers there. So getting into the top 3, also former teammate for Pierre Gasly, the aforementioned Max Verstappen, the race winner in Brazil.
Actually, everybody on that top 5 list, except for one person, is a former teammate.
Of Pierre?
Of Max Verstappen.
Oh, yeah, pretty much. He's had a lot of teammates. He kind of goes through them pretty quick, I think. And Max at P3, and we'll get to why he's not number 1 or why he's not number 2, but Verstappen got the pole position, obviously, converted the pole into an excellent win. Had a great battle with Lewis Hamilton, like we talked about in our recap, and pulled off some excellent overtaking moves as well. He controlled the race from start to finish, even though when he wasn't in first place, he got everything under control and really just throughout the weekend controlled his place. I think one of his most complete race wins of his career so far.
Well, and then you think back to Texas. He was podium, third in Texas, and then, he pretty much had pole in Mexico.
Yeah.
So the last 3 races of his, he's been done really well. And even before that, he was still consistent, just didn't have great starts to finish his races. And I think the last 3 races, we've just seen that improvement and just carried it through, like you said, all weekend from free practice 1 to the end of the race. So,
yep, agreed. So our top 2 positions for this week, and a lot of debate between us two this week and who we should put in number 1. And I was kind of thinking with my heart on this one and who I wanted to put number 1, but we eventually settled to put him here at number 2. And that's the guy who had the smoothest operation in his life in Brazil, Carlos Sainz, number 2.
Yeah, just incredible drive. You don't see drives like that from, somebody who's never gotten a podium before until now. He started in 20th position, had an awful qualifying to begin with. He started off in Q1, couldn't make it at all. It didn't even make 1 lap, I think. And then eventually had to go out of qualifying. Comes back from 20th position to P4, and eventually get the podium finish with Lewis Hamilton's penalty. Just amazing. That's all I have to say. And, he's worked at it all season. Finally gets the credit that he deserves in this race, I want to say. So
yeah, I was so happy for him, just like we were for Pierre Gasly. And I think you just summed it up really well. Had excellent overtaking moves. Wasn't shown on TV, but we saw it afterwards. The one on the Racing Point and a lot of other ones. Kept his nose clean. And who would have thought on the Saturday, after he didn't make it out of Q1, that he'd be standing on the podium with his entire team afterwards. So
yeah.
Like I said, I wish it would have been number 1, but you made an excellent point as to why he shouldn't be number 1. And we stuck Lewis Hamilton at number 1 for this week. He's been there for the last 5 weeks or so now.
Yeah, and it was a tough call because obviously he did have that penalty, and which dropped him down to P7.
Yeah,
P7. But he still, if that incident didn't happen, Lewis Hamilton would have gotten 2nd position or 3rd position with Albon in 3rd. And he just won his he's a 6-time world champion as of the last race, not Brazil, but the race before it. And he was consistent in all those races, and I think just because of that, we have to leave him up there in that number 1 position. And going into Abu Dhabi, this might change completely. Abu Dhabi sucks, right?
Right. Okay. Yeah, last race. No, I agree with you. And again, we have to go back to the last 5, and he's had wins, obviously, in Mexico, in the United States, we had win in Mexico, and then podiums in the United States, Japan as well. Russia, obviously, he won as well. So, again, he's had a really solid last 5 races, clinched the championship. So, Carlos Sainz is maybe number 1 in our hearts, but on paper, we kept him at number 2. So, that's why we kept Lewis at number 1. But I'm sure
he also admitted to his mistake. So
correct. And you're right, though. He probably would have finished on the podium had he not made that mistake versus Alex Albon. So, yeah. But that's our list for this week. Disagree with us? Let us know in the comments below. If you agree with us, give us a like. Give us a comment on your own list if you have it after what was a really crazy Brazilian Grand Prix. And we really enjoy these crazy races because it gives a lot of these movements to these drivers. And like you said, we don't get a podium often for Carlos Sainz or Pierre Gasly, so we put them up high on our list any chance that we get.
Sorry, I haven't noticed your shirt this entire time, and I just noticed it now.
Oh, Manchester United shirt. Yeah. I did not plan that, by the way. It just happened. If you haven't checked out our race recap of the Brazilian Grand Prix, it's attached in this video. Also on our playlist on our home channel. We've only got 2 more editions of the Power Rankings for 2019. Obviously, the one post Abu Dhabi, and then our full end of the season Power Rankings. So
that's gonna be a tough one. We're gonna need to bring a pen and paper, and
chalkboard, whiteboard.
It's gonna be one of those those fantasy league things that you see where we make a chalkboard of everything and go really into it.
Yeah.
Or it's gonna be 2 minutes.
Maybe. maybe 3. If Tyler's here, it'll be like 4 minutes. But that's actually a good idea. Let us know your full season power rankings. Drop us your list in the comments below, and maybe we'll compare and contrast ours in our last episode. So that should be a fun one. But until then, we'll see you in Abu Dhabi for our race preview. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks.